Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. In this video, I will be sharing a overview, kind of review, walkthrough of this book, Elemental Divination, A Dice Oracle by Stephen Ball. I'll also be sharing some demonstrations of how I work with this on its own and in pairing it with tarot. This is a tool that I've been using for a number of years now and that I really enjoy, but I've never made a full walkthrough of, partly because historically, in the early days of my channel, I haven't had a good top-down filming setup. But now I do, so I thought what better time than to go over this fantastic oracle. So I'll give a brief overview of this, including the table of contents. I'll go over the elemental system that the book uses, which is quite unique to it. I'll show how the oracle works in terms of the most basic way to do a reading with this, and then I will give some demonstration readings towards the end. So this book is published by Llewellyn. It has a nice kind of texture to the artwork on the cover. It has a price of $15.99 US on the back, and my copy is paperback. I believe there is also an ebook version of this. I am not sure, about the formatting of that because I haven't used it. I really just use this paperback version. So the way that this works is, of course, using dice. Now, the absolute minimum that you would need in addition to the book to be able to make use of this would be one D6. Pretty standard, six-sided die. You could take one out of any kind of board game that you might have at home and use that. You really don't need anything beyond that. Now, ideally, in my view, and it will become clear why as I go through this discussion, ideally you would have 3 D6, 2 of them the same color, and at least one of them a different color. That would be, to me, the ideal setup to use this. There are ways of using this outlined in the book that use up to 5 dice. However, of course, you can just re-roll the same one over and over again, provided that you keep track of the number that you got. So a standard reading, as we'll see, uses 3. I prefer rolling all 3 at once, but you could simply roll the same one 3 times. You would just have to be clear on what you were rolling for and keep track again of those numbers. So the table of contents of this book gives a good sense of its contents, of course. So we'll zoom in a little bit here. We have the structure of the oracle, use of dice and divination, a brief historical section there of a couple of pages, the associations for each of the elements. And as you can see here, the elements used are air, fire, water, earth, sun, and moon. So we have a 6-element system to go with the 6 sides of these dice. There are, of course, instructions of how to cast the oracle and ask a question. And then what we have is the couple of examples, choosing your dice. Again, any D6 will do. A couple of extras here, consecrating the dice and some meditations about the elements. And then this is really the core of the oracle itself, is pages 55 onward. And it's all the different combinations that one can get using the 3 rolls that we'll see that casting this oracle involves. This is a really fun tool to use. And for those with a strong kind of elemental basis to their practice, I think it will be particularly appealing. Now, as mentioned, it does use a 6-element system. So on your D6, you will have 1 as air, 2 as fire, 3 as water, 4 as earth, 5 as sun, and 6 as moon. And the author explains why he chose to put them in that order. Now, for those who are tarot readers, the associations for air, fire, water, and earth are going to be quite familiar in terms of the tarot suits. Just as a quick example, for earth, earth includes associations like the image of rock, hard, enduring, strong, and a mighty and patient defense, fertile soil, which gives life and restores natural balance, and human concerns, where it represents material things such as money, work, and all physical needs of the body, hearty food, home comforts and security, and matters of family. He writes on page 12. So this feels a lot like Pentacles, right? I think that this will feel quite easily navigable for somebody who reads tarot in a elemental way. Now, the sun and moon are where we have something new, right? And the sun, just briefly, Stephen Ball describes as giving warmth, health, and light, energy needed for life. It confers success in any endeavor, in any situation. The sun is primarily a sign of great success and happiness, okay? And he goes on to describe what the sun does, the fact that the sun is, certainly related to fire as an element, but is greater and stronger than fire. And it goes into how sun behaves in a reading, and every element here has kind of positive, negative, and neutral connotations to it. The moon is related to water, and I think will be familiar to tarot readers as well, as related to intuition, mystery, the unknown, fluctuation given the moon's phases, and inspiring imagination, and so on. So really they do feel quite a bit like the sun and moon cards, but something that this book does in a really interesting way, I think, and is one of the many reasons that I really like this, is that it really blends the more esoteric associations of things like the elements or the sun and the moon with more concrete attention to what these things actually do in the world, right? What does a fire do? It gives light, it gives warmth, it can burn things up, it can get out of control, it can be, very dangerous, or it can be life-saving. And the oracle kind of encompasses all of these different kinds of meanings of the different elements. Now, for some folks, I think the idea of a 6-element system would be off-putting. If you're very, set on there being 4 elements of fire, air, water, and earth, and the idea of introducing 2 others as elements is something that you're not interested in doing, there's a really easy workaround for that, right? And that is, of course, to just use a D4 or a couple of D4s instead of a D6. So here your dice would only give you 4 options, the first 4, air, fire, water, and earth, leaving out the sun and the moon. Now that means that a significant chunk of this book will just be pages that you don't turn to if you choose to do it that way, but it does certainly work just as well, and you could do that if you like. I find that the 6-element system is really fun to work with, so I just use it as designed. Now, in terms of how this works, a basic reading, as I've mentioned, involves using 3 rolls, okay? And when you roll them, what you're getting are 2 elements, and that's the 2 that I here have as the same color. You could have 3 different colors of dice if you wanted to. 2 elements, and then the third one represents the relationship between them. So the premise of this oracle is that you have an element that is present, and you have another element that is coming into the situation. Whether that means coming into your day, coming into a particular relationship or an interaction. And the third one indicates whether this newcomer element is stronger or weaker than the one that was already there. Does, for example, in this case, water come in and overtake earth? Or does water come in gently and the earth that was already present overpower that water? And this you simply read as whether it is a 1 to 3, in which case the new element is weaker, or a 4 to 6, in which case the new element is stronger and the one that overtakes the pre-existing element. And what the book does then is give every possible combination of elements interacting in this way. So for example, just turning to a random one, we have greater air over water. Here, air has come in stronger than the water that was present. And this one has been named by the author, the confidant. Sensible advice, a person who is outside of the emotional upset. So here we've got the emotion of water and greater air, that more detached intellectual approach is coming in and winning out over the emotion of water. And you get a couple of pages to explain what exactly that looks like. And those descriptions will mention perhaps different situations, potential positives or negatives of this outcome. And so that is really the core of how this works. And a useful feature of this book that is really indispensable, I think, is the appendix that makes it very easy to find the different combinations. So we start here at a dice roll of 1, 1, air and air, right? And we go up from there. And it really makes it easy to find the different combinations that you might be looking for, right? And so when I read this and I roll for myself, I read whichever of these two black dice comes up closer to me as the pre-existing element that has been present. The one that's further away is the one that's coming in, and then the one that is distinguished by color, that's the indicator of the strength of the new element. That's how I work with this. Now, if you had 3 dice that were the same color, you could roll the 2 elemental ones first and then roll the indicator of strength one last so that you would know which one was which. If you only had 1 to work with, you've taken it out of your Monopoly or whatever you're using, you could roll for the pre-existing element first, the new element second, and then the relationship third. You just obviously would have to be clear on your intentions ahead of time to not end up muddled, right? And so to give a example of how you could work with this, you could ask, what kind of energetic dynamics that the day has in store for you or what's going on in your day. And they're going a little bit off the screen. I've actually got them in a wooden frame here that my partner made for me precisely for this purpose and for geomancy dice as well. That's a square foot. So here we've got the element of earth as the pre-existing element with water coming in. And this I know doesn't show up very well on the camera, but that is a 1. So the water coming in is weaker. So I would go back here and I'm looking for a 3 and a 4. And so here we get 3 and 4. Lesser water over earth, the rains, a couple of keywords there if that's all you wanted to work with, and a page number. So I can go back to page 140. And here I get lesser water over earth, the rains, happiness and good fortune, the crops are watered, the earth refreshed. And it gives the image of a light rain falling on brown soil and green plants. And it describes this as a very positive reading indeed. And now, once you start to work with this, right, it becomes fairly intuitive, particularly if you have strong elemental associations already. I really enjoy the write-ups in this book. I think that Stephen Ball has done a wonderful job with the text. It's really beautiful to read. It is nuanced. It gives multiple kind of angles on each reading in ways that I really appreciate. But if you have a strong sense of what water is like, what earth is like, you can definitely read this in a more intuitive way and think, okay, I've got a bit of, the emotion of water coming in, but the kind of solidity and practicality of earth is going to persist here. There's going to be some feelings and maybe some enjoyment, something to do with relationships, some love coming in that has to do with water, right? In a stable way, because earth is what's going to win out here. And you can start to think about it, without even looking at the book if you are not really interested in reading the description. But I really like the descriptions, even though I do have a very strong set of elemental associations. I find that the book aligns with my own thinking and enriches it as well. I really like the balance between what these elements do in the world, right? A little bit of water coming to the land is refreshing and it allows for life, right? And so that reading will cover that, but we can also think in a more kind of esoteric or magical correspondences kind of a way as well. So I think that this is a beautiful thing to start the day with, right? Like, what's up during my day? What's a kind of energetic shift that I should be watching out for? What might be changing in my energetic environment, right? And a single roll and turning to the book can give a great little morning reading, I think. The author gives some suggestions for casting multiple times that feel very much like spread positions, but for dice. I don't want to go through everything in the book because, it is it's Stephen Ball's book and it's out there and it's available. So I don't want to just kind of read the entire book to you, but he gives suggestions for, you could read one reading for present and one for future. You could do present, near future, and far future. You could do a bunch of readings, perhaps for the days of the week. There's lots of things you could do if you wanted to roll more than once and think about different time frames. Something that I really like to do with this is to roll twice for two different options, right? So let's say we were doing a reading as an example about whether I should accept job A or job B, right? Whether I want to stay in a particular position that I'm in or maybe move to a new position in my workplace. I could roll once for staying where I am. And here we get lesser fire over water. So we can go to, again, the back. And we would go to 2 and 3. That takes us to page 112. So for staying in the job I have, I get lesser fire over water, the nymph, flirting, plucking at the emotions, a smiley, cheeky spirit of water and fire. Okay. Any attempts by the fire to incite anger or battle will fail through lack of strength, but the surface of the waters will be warmed and cheered by the effort. Okay. And so this is a positive reading overall, okay? But it covers some different options that could be relevant to a workplace reading, right? It covers, what happens if here the water's being left cold and actually the fire winning out would have been nice, right? Maybe that means that things are not going to change much, and maybe, with fire being lesser, if what I'm looking for is some excitement, staying in the job that I'm in is not the option, right? So there's lots of things that you could come up with here. And then if you rolled again to say, well, what about taking the other roll that's come available? Here I have lesser sun over sun. And this is an interesting one that I'm glad has come up, because sometimes you get the same, of course, element twice, right? So here we have the sun showing up twice, but lesser. So a sun is coming in and not replacing the sun that's already there. This gives us the navigator. Small corrections to an already successful course, good use of restraint, and timing. Now for the idea of possibly taking another position at my workplace, that's an interesting reading that might suggest that, what I have now is great. But maybe this new role would be, not so different as I'm making it out to be in my head, and also a chance for a good success for me. So I really like this as a way of doing a kind of 2-option reading. I like doing this with tarot as well, pulling cards for 2 different possibilities or 2 different choices as a kind of decision-making reading. And I think that this works well for that as well. Now, in terms of using this alongside a daily practice, with tarot as well, I think that this blends well with other tools. So to give a couple of examples, a reading that I've done as a morning reading for myself involves rolling and asking a question along the lines of, well, what's going on today? What's going on energetically today? And here I get greater air over sun. Then I can ask, okay, well, How can I best navigate that? And this is the Fyodor Pavlov I've just picked, you know, kind of at random. Any tarot deck will do. And I've got the Hermit, okay? So for what's going on today, I can go to, again, in the index, 1 and 5, okay? And that's greater air over sun. The governess, good guidance, steering the currents to find the best answer, right? Which is described as a strict, unemotional teacher who, while entirely correct, can still run the risk of not being caring enough, right? So there is this kind of detachedness of air coming in and overtaking everything here, right? But it is good insight. Now, how can I best navigate that? We've got a card that has, you know, a lot to do in many cases with, you know, wise advice, right? And so I really like the idea of having this, you know, second tool here, and you could use an oracle card, you could use, you could draw an animal, you know, how best to navigate a particular energetic dynamic. Maybe a particular animal oracle card, if you work with those a lot, would be a good suggestion here, and get a great reading from that, right? So here we have, to go back and get a little bit more sense of what is covered here, right? There's a new influence coming in that's very likely right, but perhaps dragging you away from playing in sunny days, okay? So more likely here the challenge was the sun and the air is the right answer for it, right? Don't be blinded by the beauty of others. Keep a cool head. There's lots of interesting insights here in terms of what the day could look like, something to keep an eye on during the day, and then a card to give a sense of how to navigate that. I really like doing a card of the day, but I don't like doing a card of the day without a question. Even if that question is general, like what do I need to focus on or look out for today, or what kind of qualities should I try to embody today, I think a question is important, and this is a really good set of questions, I think. Right? You could also ask what's going on today. You know, what's up today is one of my favorite questions for this. What's going on today? And here we get greater water over earth. And then we could ask, what is a message of support to help me navigate that today? What's a message of support for me during the day? Here we get greater water over earth. That's called the deluge. Emotion and vision triumph over blockages. Healing replaces stasis. And the image is a huge wave flooding over a wide expanse of cracked brown ground. And so the water has come in here and saturated the earth. And in terms of how, you know, the message I need to hear to support me in this message, right? From the tarot, we get the High Priestess, and I swear I'm just drawing these at random here. A message that has everything to do with listening to that intuition, right? Listening to oneself, going internally for the answer, right? In a reading of water really coming in really strongly. It's a time to pay attention. You could also ask, what kind of dynamic in the day do I need to pay the most attention to? Because there's always lots of things going on. What is the energetic shift that I need to pay the most attention to? Okay. And why? So here we get lesser sun over fire, which is another really interesting one because, of course, sun is stronger than fire, but here we have the sun coming in and being outweighed by the fire that was already there, which Stephen Ball describes as the guildmaster, skillful assistance from an expert source. Okay, so here the sun is holding itself back and letting that fire shine. Maybe the fire is a kind of, or actually, sorry, that's not fire, that's air. I'm reading the wrong thing to you here. Oh, no, I'm not. Sorry. Got confused. That is right. The Guildmaster. So here we have the sun not winning out over fire. And Stephen Ball talks about this as often being about the stronger element, the element that's clearly stronger, the sun is clearly stronger than fire, holding back deliberately, right? Letting the novice shine, right? That's what I need to be paying attention to today. Why? We end up with the Seven of Cups, right? So there's lots that we could glean from these kinds of readings. And again, it pairs well with just about anything. And, dice are really fun to roll around and play with and hold in your hands. And there's so many beautiful ones, but really, you probably already have everything you need in your home to work with this fantastic tool already, aside from the book itself. I think that this is absolutely fantastic, and in the years that I've had it, has been one of the things that I've used the most. Do you have this book, and do you like to work with it? If so, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your experiences working with this book, and thank you all for watching. I wish you all a great day. Bye.